Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it for one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.'" This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. Grace and peace to you from the one who created us, the one who holds us close, and the one who brings us into everlasting life with him, Jesus Christ. The other day, I was updating my calendar, and I was looking through this list of national awareness days that I should be aware of. And besides the well-known days like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Boss's Day, I noted some other days like Earth Day, Mental Health Day, and even National Donut Day. And then there was a day that caught my eye. It was National Kangaroo Care Day. I'm not even joking. It's on May 15th. And I thought this was interesting, especially given the fact that we don't have any wild kangaroos running around the United States. So I decided to go down the internet rabbit hole and learn more about this special day. And what I found was more than interesting, it was inspiring. I read a story of a midwife in Colombia, Bogota, and she talked about some of those out-of-the-box treatments that they are able to do when medicine and therapists, they're able to do what medicine and therapists cannot do. And she gave the example of a premature baby's heartbeat that is slightly off rhythm. Now, such a situation is obviously unwelcome. When intravenous medicines don't do the trick and the electric shock of a newborn's heart proves too risky, options are limited. And what doctors in the NICU have discovered is that sometimes skin-to-skin contact with the mother is a good way to resynchronize the infant's heart. Now, the informal name for this beautiful bonding procedure of laying that naked newborn upon its mother's chest is kangaroo care. And it is a derivative of kangaroos who carry their young close to their bodies. Now, in the NICU, this means placing that diaper-clad baby, tummy to tummy, upon its mother's chest. And the infant's head is turned so that its ear is above its mother's heart. And what can follow is a spectacular phenomenon. The less powerful vibrations of the child's heart begin to lock in step with the more powerful rhythmic vibrations of the parent's heart. In essence, they start to move with synchronicity. Those NICU nurses and therapists have found that everything from sleep and weight gain to respiration and body temperature complications often can be helped by kangaroo care. When a baby gets cold, the mother's body temperature in a skin-to-skin situation may actually increase, as if to warm up the baby. And there's actually a scientific name for this cooperative phenomenon. When two objects or two people want to, quote, share the same frequency, it is called entrainment. There was a brilliant Dutch mathematician and physicist named Christopher Huygens, and he made an interesting discovery in 1665. He actually put a series of pendulum-type grandfather clocks together in the same room. And he started the pendulums at different times, each swinging differently. And when he returned the next day, all of the pendulums were swinging together. It was as if each had locked into the rhythm of another. This mimicking behavior is more than a little bit fascinating. Entrainment, I think, is a good metaphor for how we might think differently about our Christian lives. Think about it. What Christian does not want the faithfulness of his or her life to vibrate more resonantly with the heartbeat of Christ? Who among us would not appreciate a bit more synchronicity with Jesus' impulse to love and serve? We all know the benefits of faith in Jesus Christ. But imagine the possibilities that would accompany having the faith of Jesus Christ. Imagine being so in tune with Jesus that our words and our deeds oscillate at the very frequency that is Christ's own. Well, we can do more than just imagine this. When we say that Trinity is a caring community, well, it's far more than saying that we're just going to be nice people. We are saying that we trust that God is going to hold us so close that we cannot help but sync with God's own heart. And it is a we statement. There is nothing private about faith. We, as a caring community, live into what Luke describes in that Acts passage as being of one heart and one soul with Christ. We are Christians. We are people who follow Jesus. And to follow Jesus means that our humanity is connected to Christ's. But it doesn't end there, because being connected to Christ means that we can't help but want to connect our humanity with those whom he loves. Trinity is a caring community. This means that we synchronize our lives, our communal heartbeat with the needs of all people. It is to see the face of Christ in all people, especially those members of Christ's family that are described in Matthew as the least of these. Trinity is a caring community, and that means that we want to be of one heart and one soul with Christ and with one another. And so when we see those whose poverty or want gives the pulse of a less robust heartbeat in life, we can't help but want to join our communal, more powerful heartbeat with theirs. Just imagine the possibilities. Imagine if our abundance would lock in with their scarcity. Imagine if our courage can lock in with their fear. Imagine if our care can lock in with their pain. Imagine if our presence can lock in with their loneliness. When Luke writes, "Great grace was upon them all," I think that is what is experienced when there is such synchronicity. when the pendulum of our very lives swing to the same frequency as Jesus, there is great grace upon us all. Luke stresses in Acts that it was the whole group of those who believed, who are of one heart and soul, and everything they owned was held in common. And I'm not sure if this community aspect can be stressed enough. We're living in a culture that is increasingly more and more individualistic. But as I said earlier, there is nothing private about faith. But individualism is certainly tempting. When my cousin was 3 years old, he seemed to live by the mantra, "I can do it by myself." And it didn't matter what it was. He declared this mantra with great gusto and conviction as he tackled the day's challenges. This "I can do it by myself" doctrine is also persuasive for adults. We hear a lot of rhetoric about believing in yourself. Motivational speakers, self-help gurus, and mass marketing say you can do it. Just believe you can. You deserve it. And while it sounds good, it doesn't last. Left to our own devices, any bit of belief we have in our personal value will fall short after being put through the daily tests of mistakes made, personal doubts, discouraging words, and trauma. It doesn't take long before we realize that we can't do it by ourselves. In other words, our heartbeat will never be strong enough if we are left to our own devices. We are not meant to have identity and belief reinforced by only ourselves. We are not meant to carry our own burdens. We are not meant to be the sole caretakers of our lives. We need a community, a group of loving and compassionate somebodies who provide deep and authentic relationships, who carry each other's burdens, who reinforce and strengthen identity and value in one another. This is what it means to be a caring community. This is what it means to be the church. And maybe this poses the question, well, what makes the church different than a local country club or civic club? I mean, after all, community exists through those places too. And perhaps. However, membership is vastly different between them. The Apostle Paul says, "So in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others." Being a caring community means that we synchronize our lives, our communal heartbeat. Membership in the church draws people into relationships that go beyond casual associations. These are relationships that are established in Christ. Synchronized with Christ's love, we are able to see each person as created by God, in God's image, and a person of intrinsic value. This understanding shapes the way we live and we care for one another. We invest more deeply into one another's lives. We share sorrows as well as celebrations. We become more generous, more compassionate, more forgiving. We speak words of life into one another's hearts, and we encourage and advocate for one another. In our shared identity as children of God, we find that our hearts beat stronger, that we have more courage and more hope to step forward into each new day, knowing that for better or for worse, we are not alone. National Kangaroo Care Day is now marked on my calendar, May 15th. And it is there to remind me that kangaroo care is for more than kangaroos and premature babies. It is for all of us children of God who are held close by the one who sets the rhythm of our lives and energizes our hearts to love and care more deeply for God's world. Thanks be to God.